weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Welcome back to another episode of Atmospheric Insight. I'm meteorologist Adam Epstein.
I'm meteorologist Riley O'Connor.
Riley, let's jump right into this one because I've been seeing a lot of hoopla about it. People have been talking about El Nino being very strong, calling it a super El Nino. And let's discuss, is this real? Do you need to pay attention? What are the impacts going to be? So I just updated this yesterday, and these are from the professionals that look very closely at the ocean temperatures in the Pacific and all the global oscillations and figure out what's going to happen in the future. So to read this, you have the probability on the y-axis going from 0 to 100%. You have on the x-axis 3 months at a time. So you have March, April, May, June, May, June, July, and so forth. So as you get into the summer months, you see those red bars go up, and the red bars are the probability of being El Nino. And there's no blue, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about it being an El Nino, right? It's very high probability that by the winter time or fall, right, we're over 90% will be an El Nino. The question is just how strong is it going to be?
Right. And if you think about that too, it really is a fascinating topic because we can get a lot, very significant amount of moisture, rain, and snow, or we don't get hardly any, even if
Yeah,
it's a strong La Nina, right?
right.
There's-
So this has patterns that reverberate around the globe, things that you typically see, but that's the key word, typical. Here in Sacramento, Northern California, we are truly in that in-between zone where it doesn't have a strong signal either way, but we'll get into the numbers in that more quickly in a second. So this is the explanation of El Nino. It has to do with water temperatures. Usually have these trade winds that push warm water west away from South America, but then there are certain years like this one where those winds get a little bit weaker, so all of that warm water comes back to the coast of South America, and that creates the differences in weather patterns that we see all across the world. This is what we typically expect in the US. Low pressure is able to come through and drift a little bit farther south. So you have the southern tier of the US, which is generally wetter. It's warmer and tends to be a little bit drier to the northern part of the US. And then there's Northern California, yeah, right in between,
right.
just on the cusp. Okay, so one of the interesting things that you brought up is like, yeah, we could be wetter. So out of the 4 years on record that we have, we had very strong El Ninos. This one, people are calling it super. It's very strong. The water temperature is at least 1.5 degrees Celsius above normal. 2 of them above normal water years here in Sacramento, 2 of them below normal. So you look at that and it's like 50% coin flip,
Mhm.
right? However, the wettest year on record, 82, 83, was a super El Nino, a very strong El Nino. So that means like the ceiling is raised, right? If there is a year where we get flooding rains, a winter with a tremendous amount of wet weather, it would occur in an El Nino event like this.
Mhm. And and then it was 96, 97,
Yeah, we had
right?
that one too.
That was a big one.
I have to look back through my email for the other ones I sent it to you because, it's a lot of
15,
data to remember.
yeah, 2015, 16.
Oh, you know it all.
That was a huge one, which
Yeah.
was interesting, and we were talking about this before. Now, if you think about it, I was working in Portland at that time, and I remember this was the first time I really kind of dove in and really looking at the water temperatures too about it. And there was a thing called the blob where the Northern Pacific Ocean was warmer,
Mhm.
and it was supposed to be a really significant year. I mean, that in 15 and 16, a really strong El Nino event, and it didn't really pan out as much as
Yeah.
expected.
That's a tough part about this,
Mhm.
right? You expect typical impacts, but it can be atypical,
Right.
right? So it doesn't guarantee anything. It's just you're more prone to seeing these certain patterns.
Yeah.
So those years that you mentioned, right? In Sacramento, we had 82, 83. We had almost 35 inches of rain. There was flooding all throughout the state that year. And then you also had 97, 98, 31.95 inches of rain here in Sacramento. And that is the third wettest year on record. I found this interesting too. I looked up the top 5 wettest years on record in
Mhm.
Sacramento.
Mhm.
Number 2, 2016-17,
Mhm.
33.08. Guess what the phase was there?
Was it La Nina?
It was a moderate La Nina, right?
Yeah.
So there, it's really up
Yeah.
in the air for us. Like we talked about just a moment ago. If we are going to see that record breaking huge arc storm flood, like 1 in 1,000 years.
Right.
It happens during an El Nino event. But being El Nino doesn't guarantee by any
Right.
means that it will happen. So these are some of the stats we looked up to give you an idea of what event, how many years of those events were above normal water years, and the percentage of that above normal. So you have very strong and strong El Nino, which are literally 50%
Mhm.
above normal. Coin flip.
Mhm.
The one that resonates the most with wetter years is actually a weak El
Mhm.
Nino. Go
Yep.
figure.
Right.
And then you have La Nina on the other side, right, where the water is a little colder off the coast of South America. And there's no strong correlation there either.
Right.
I mean, moderate, it's 50%, strong, close to 50, it's
Yeah.
43%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, people, and it's true to get kind of sucked in with this, because when you see the headlines, you know, historic La Nina, historic El Nino coming,
Yep.
that sort of thing, you really get locked in and you believe that that will happen. You're like, this is going to happen. Oh my gosh. Well, we
Yeah.
need to prepare for it. Or it could be good news with all the rain, or it's going to be really dry. But really, it is kind of it's a coin toss
Yeah.
sometimes.
And I'm going to show you some examples of that in the Ask Adam segment in a minute or two. That's what I'm talking about as well. It's because I've had a couple of people ask me about this, and I've seen these graphics and these headlines like eye grabbing, right? It's super El Nino,
Yeah.
what potential for massive flooding and all this. And that's a part of news that's unfortunate, and a part of social media that is certainly unfortunate. It's like that hype train
Yeah.
where do you need to worry? Probably not.
Mhm.
But when you see all these posts about it and all of these like big bold letters and things in red, maybe you start to worry and think
Yeah.
like this is a big deal.
Yeah.
But there's just no way to tell what's
Right.
going to happen. It's just we know that these patterns tend to occur. So that is Enso, which is natural,
Mhm.
right? It's a natural thing. 2 to 7 years, it flips back and forth.
Yeah.
It's been happening a very long time.
Mhm.
All right, let's go into this Ask Adam segment, and we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into what El Nino is.
So I've been seeing a lot of colorful headlines about a super El Nino with absurd AI generated graphics like this, or clickbait headlines like this. So let's break down what's actually happening and if you need to care about it. El Nino is part of a natural climate cycle called ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation. Normally, trade winds push warm water west across the Pacific, keeping the East Pacific cool. During El Nino, those trade winds weaken and warm water sloshes back east towards South America. That shift in ocean heat rewires weather patterns all across the globe. A strong El Nino typically means wetter conditions across the southern part of the United States, drought in Australia, Indonesia, and parts of Africa, and warmer, drier conditions across the northern United States and Canada. Basically, the weather patterns change across the planet. This winter, the odds are leaning towards a very strong El Nino, meaning the water temperatures will be at least 1.5 degrees Celsius above normal. Intensity drives severity. The stronger the event, the more extreme those typical impacts tend to be. We've seen this before. In 1982-83, severe drought hit Australia while California flooded. There are 3 other times when we had very strong El Ninos, and no surprise, there were extreme weather events, billions of dollars in damage, and deaths attributed to them. They move global food prices, trigger wildfires, and fuel hurricane season with the warm water. Keep in mind, El Nino is natural. It's been happening for thousands of years on roughly a 2 to 7 year cycle. After this peaks, it will likely flip to La Nina, the cool phase, which brings its own set of impacts. This isn't new. What is new is the baseline it's sitting on. Let's keep this part straight. Climate change does not cause El Nino, but it raises the floor. Warmer oceans mean El Nino events have more heat energy to work with. Research suggests that's making the impacts more intense. Think of it like storm surge on top of already rising seas. Here in Northern California, in Sacramento, where I live and work, having a very strong El Nino does not guarantee us anything. However, the wettest year on record did occur during a very strong El Nino year, so that tells us the ceiling is highest in these conditions. So you can take that for what it's worth.
And Riley, before we go here for a quick break, little trivia for you. Maybe you know the answer. Do you know how El Nino got its name?
Uh, it, it's what, Christ child, like, or right?
It has to do with Jesus.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it was, oh my gosh, it happened during the Christmas holiday, the season.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
You're on it. You're on the
yes,
right
and it
track.
was what country? It was help me.
So I don't
I'm
know
on
the
I'm
exact
on the
country, but it was fishermen off the coast of
that's
South
yes,
America that noticed around Christmas time in
yes,
December, the waters were a little bit warmer than normal. So they made a name for El Nino, the baby boy, right? Jesus.
yep,
So And La Nina was a name that came later for the opposite phase.
Yeah.
Little fun weather trivia
That is
for
cool.
you.
Yeah, exactly. I do. It was like when you said Fishman, I was
You're
like,
on
oh,
it.
there it is.
You're on it. All right, we'll be right back in 2 minutes.
And welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. I had the chance to talk with a CAL FIRE, a chief from CAL FIRE, really about looking ahead to the fire season, what possibly to expect, and he had some really interesting things to say. Today, I'm talking with Battalion Chief Chris Baldoni with CAL FIRE about the upcoming fire season and what to expect. Hey, Chief, how are you? Thanks for joining me today.
Good afternoon. How's it going?
Doing well, thank you. Want to dive in and talk to you about a couple things because we have already started to hear some rumbles that this year could be an earlier than normal fire season year. What are your thoughts on that? And what is your concern? And maybe what Californians should be concerned about going into the 2026 fire season?
Well, I never want to give anybody any false hopes and say that this fire season's not going to be bad, because as we know that all fire seasons are completely unpredictable at this point. But we are seeing an earlier start this year, and that's for sure. And that's something that CAL FIRE tracks closely. So as we monitor the weather, the fuels, and the environment this year, we really kind of now are treating everything as a year-round threat, if that makes sense. It used to be called a fire season. Now we call it a fire year. With the early snow melt and the drying conditions, that's just going to make our fuels more receptible to rapid fire growth. And then when rapid fire growth occurs, it essentially makes our job much more difficult. They're much more difficult to contain at that point. So everything is much more unpredictable. The fires spread more rapidly, which makes our jobs just that much more difficult.
I want to get into a question about that because we had a great our reservoirs are looking good right now.
Yes.
And we ended 2025 on a pretty good note with a snowpack, and then March it was hot. We lost pretty much everything. Then we had another snowstorm that came through. With the snowpack being so low right now, we're already starting to see abnormally dry conditions and even the drought coming back in. Uh, Is that going to factor in what our fire season could look like, even though our reservoirs are in good shape right now?
In short answer, yes, it will affect our fire season. The reservoirs are full, which is absolutely wonderful. However, we have to take a look at this fire season as a fuels problem, not so much a water in a reservoir problem. So the longer the fuels dry out on their own, which means lack of snowpack, it's just going to make the environment so much more susceptible to rapid fire growth. That prolonged drying period just causes huge issues for CAL FIRE in just relation to control efforts. So but when we're already seeing that prolonged drying starting now.
And one of those things, since we're seeing that already, you also do prescribed fires, right? And
That's
controlled
correct.
burns. Can you explain that a little bit more for viewers who maybe don't know much about it and the techniques and technologies that you use to help with that?
So CAL FIRE practices a lot of prescribed fire. We're increasing that effort on a yearly basis, but it's one of our most effective tools. And I think a common misconception is that the control burning that we do somehow will eliminate the fire threat. But what it does is it allows the conditions to be controlled much easier when we do actually have a wildland fire in the area. So it removes the fuels from a forested area. So if that way that area is impacted, it's much easier to get resources in to control that. And so you will see large prescribed fires in the state being controlled by CAL FIRE that would look much like an actual real wildland fire, meaning we have aircraft, drones, fire engines, bulldozers, hand crews, everything that we would assign to a normal fire. That if you called 911 for, that is what we're doing on the prescribed fire side as well. So it looks the same, but it's a much more controlled environment, and we're just removing those receptive fuels from the environment.
And when you look at areas that you do the prescribed fires and you talk about the fuels, are you finding a place that in a forest or in an area that has higher grass, or how do you decide on exactly where those will be?
Well, there's a whole team of people that work across the state. And so every area that CAL FIRE serves, which is much of the state of California, each of those zones or units that we work in, like I work in the Nevada Yuba Placer unit, and we have priority areas. And basically our number one goal is to be able to protect communities that are abnormally at risk.
Right.
So we prioritize based on fuel, the topography, the wildland urban interface area, and so it's just all dependent on several of those factors.
Okay. And looking into, as we already know, it's drying out right now. What are some of the most important steps that homeowners and people can do right now to protect their property as we get into the drier season, as we get into the summer, and even into the fall?
Right. We get asked this question a lot. And the number one thing that the homeowners can do is it's the most important step is defensible space around your home. And some of these guidelines could be found in the Public Resources Code in the 4291, but that means maintaining 100 feet of defensible space around your home. But this is something you have to look into in more detail because the 100 feet around your home is broken into zones.
Mm-hmm.
So for the first 5 feet away from your home should be clear of any kind of vegetation or combustible material. And then from 5 feet to 30 feet away from your home should be less vegetation, very thinned out, nothing receptive, nothing combustible. And then from that 30 feet out to the 100 feet, that's when things need to be thinned out and maintained. Another part that doesn't always get talked about with defensible space is not just the fuel around your home, but it's the preparation for your home itself. So cleaning the gutters, cleaning some of the receptive fuel beds, the flower beds, things that just people take for granted because most of the homes don't burn from direct flame impingement. Mm-hmm. They catch on fire due to the embers that are kind of flying through the environment during a wildland fire.
Right.
So the more we can close off our vents, keep our gutters clean, keep our roofs cleaned of material and debris, mm-hmm. that just increases your chances of survivability during a large scale incident.
Good to know, and especially areas that have a lot of trees too. I live over in the Davis area, and I noticed that there are a lot of trees and homes that have a lot of debris on the roofs there.
Yes, and that's where it comes into play. Like I said, you're not really getting the flame front burning down your home. Mm-hmm. It's the embers that are out ahead of the actual flaming front itself, and that's where we see kind of like these large home losses. And when they're being carried by the wind, it gets into your vents, it gets into your gutters, and then
it just goes up from there, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, Chief, thank you so much for your time today talking with us. We'll be in touch with you in the near future, most likely probably when we start getting into the summer season. We'll do another interview and talk with you. And I want to thank you so much for today.
Okay. Thank you, Riley. Feel free to call us anytime. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
Riley, great interview. And one of the things I want to take away and emphasize from that is that it's not a water problem this year, right? We have enough water.
Yep.
It's a fuel problem.
Right.
Without snow in the Sierra, vegetation dries out faster. You have more fuels.
Absolutely. And even driving too, you notice it's not as green, and it's a concern. So,
you've driven to the Bay Area from here since moved here. In the winter, the hills are rolling. They're lush. They're green. Yeah. It's so pretty. And then at this time of the year, it happens. Yep. Starts to turn that golden brown color.
Right.
And the firefighters, they call it curing as they dry out.
It was really cool. He gave some good examples there.
Yeah, very cool. All right, we're going to go to a bakery next with Genevieve Melzer. Stick with us. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. Riley, question for you.
Yes.
Favorite pastry?
Pedophores.
Pedophores. Yes. What is that?
They're like little cakes.
Okay.
They're like little, like little round square cake.
Do they have a custard or jelly in it?
It's usually icing on top. They're just fun to eat.
Okay.
And then anything lemon, like a lemon cake.
Interesting. I'll have to remember that for your birthday.
Yes.
When's your birthday?
October 28th.
Okay, October. Pedophores?
Yes.
Oh, I don't think I've ever heard that.
I always used to, when I was little, we call them petite fours, but that's not right.
Okay, petite fours. All right, let's see what Genevieve is getting up to today, going to a bakery and talking about weather.
Here in Sacramento, we always talk about how the weather impacts our day, but it also shapes the way our local businesses operate and even what we're craving. We're taking you inside to one of Sacramento's most beloved spots, Ettore's Bakery and Café, to see how everything from rainy days to triple-digit heat can influence what's coming out of the kitchen and who's walking through the door. Ettores is such a Sacramento staple. For people who haven't been, what makes this place so special?
Our constant change with the seasons. So every season, every holiday, we do something else. When it's rainy and cold outside, people are coming in for coffees, hot teas, pastries to indulge themselves. And then when it gets hotter at times, I see a shift more into like our cafe. Any time of year, there's a reason to come to Ettores.
Are there certain types of baked goods that scream fall or winter here?
Absolutely. So we have seasonal items that switch through the store. So our cakes are going to be a great example. During spring and summer, we have my absolute favorite cake, which is our lemon chiffon cake. I told my boyfriend if I get married during any season, it has to be spring because I have to have that cake. Another thing, like during our fall time, we carry a German chocolate cake and a caramel pecan cheesecake. During Christmas, we switch to a chocolate peppermint cake cup and a hot chocolate cake cup, which is like a spiced chocolate. And then during summertime, our key lime tarts are crazy popular, our fruit tarts.
Does certain type of weather bring in more customers than others?
A lot of times, like with my boyfriend's work, when it rains out, he gets super slow. When it rains out here, we get a lot busier because people just want to feel warm and cozy. And our atmosphere here is, you know, you can always talk to the employees, have a good time. When it's raining out, we have the heaters on our patio. It's a really fun, nice place to warm up, have a cup of coffee.
How do you weatherproof your patio to make sure people can use it year round?
We have heaters on our patio during the cold months, and then we'll also fold down some plastic screens on the side. It always keeps it nice and toasty out here. Even though we're outside, it's still pretty warm. And then we have, during the summer months, we have misters and fans. So no matter what the temperature is, we have plenty of seating, plenty of place to spend with your families.
What season are you the busiest here?
So when it's getting rainy outside, I notice we get a lot more customers, especially during the holiday months. So once it starts getting colder after Halloween, we see a real shift. People just coming in for day-to-day snacks, and people, of course, coming in for their Thanksgiving and Christmas orders. But with both those, we get pretty busy during the colder months.
On the other hand, does extreme heat affect baking or kitchen operations behind the scenes?
We always have a way to work around that. So when it's getting hotter outside, you know, we'll do our whipped cream earlier in the day. There's never anything that's going to really disrupt our business because we're trained pros. We've been doing this for 41 years, and we're going to be doing it for another 41 to come.
On that note, how do you prevent chocolate melting on hot summer days?
The good news is we do have our cold case. So during those hot summer days, we'll have the cold case, and then the iced cookies for our iced dip cookies, like our fun little, during summertime, we do starfish and jellyfish and cool stuff like that. We switch over to more of a royal icing rather than a dipped chocolate. So that's going to help keep things from melting even at your house, because the thing is, it's not going to just affect it here, it's going to affect it when you go home too. So we always want to make sure that that product is just as good when it leaves our store to when you serve it to your family.
As we move through the seasons, how does your menu offerings or customer favorites change?
So with the different seasons, I would say mainly the things I see people ordering with drinks are going to change. So during these hot summer months, I see a lot of people going for like our frozen lemonades. And then these weird cold days that we get out of nowhere, we start seeing like hot chocolates and cappuccinos, lattes. During these hot months, we'll do I just started making a lavender honey cold brew. So it's a lavender foam, honey cold brew. It is one of my favorite drinks that we have here.
From rainy mornings bringing in coffee and pastry lovers to those hot Sacramento afternoons calling for something a little bit cooler, Ettores is always adapting to the forecast. A big thanks to Mikey and the team for having us out today. Now back to you guys.
Genevieve, thank you very much. I hope you got to eat something good there.
Right?
And that honey lavender latte does sound refreshing.
It does.
All right. It's another place to go check out here in Sacramento if you haven't yet. And a nice way to spend a cool morning when the afternoons get hot. Maybe get there in the afternoon too.
Absolutely. It looks like they have a nice choice of food.
Yes, they do. Right. Get anything you need.
Yeah.
All right, Riley, thank you very much. And thank you at home for joining us for another episode of Atmospheric Insight. It's been a pleasure. See you again next week.